Our talk is on COVID clots, flattery or wisdom. So I want to give a little resume about the COVID vaccine and then get on to some things that are more general, whether we choose flattery or wisdom. Partly the two topics are related. I find those who are pushing a global agenda for COVID with scientific prejudice, twisting facts, I do is right. So criticism is not taken in. In fact, there's great hostility to an alternative view of what science might be. So in this past week, what we have found is COVID clots appeared not only for the AstraZeneca vaccine, it was also reported with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. The difference was in the EU when COVID clots began to appear. Scientists and watchers, reporting bodies took more notice of the fact, and a reputed body of scientists had written an open letter headed by Professor Charit Bandit and many others have written an open letter about the issues of the COVID clots. So basically, it is like this. One, this is an mRNA vaccine that gets into the bloodstream, and where the bloodstream slows down, these are the issues they raised anyway. Others raised it while the vaccine was in preparation, where the blood flow slows down, such as in the heart and in the brain and even in the lung. When the blood flow slows down, that the spike protein made by the mRNA vaccine will attach to the cells of the endothelium. So, the blood flow is like that, the blood vessel is like that, these little capillaries. So inside the capillary is lined with endothelial cells. So when the spike protein is being made in the endothelial cells, because this mRNA will get into any cell, when the spike protein is made in the endothelial cells, there are peptides that will be formed, and then our CD8 lymphocytes will begin to recognize the peptides that are being made as the peptides come to the surface of the luminal cells, to the lumen side of the endothelium. That is what I'm doing, the lumen side. So there are endothelial cells all around like that in the capillary. And when the spike protein comes there, then the CD8 lymphocytes in the bloodstream will begin to attack the endothelial cell. That's where the clotting problem begins. And then in the platelet itself, there are ACE2 receptors that the spike protein binds to, and then the platelets get activated and platelets also get attacked. Therefore, the platelets go down. So there's where the blood flow has slowed down, such as in the heart and in the brain, there have been myocardial infarction, and in the brain there have been blood clots forming, particularly in the sinus vein thrombosis in the brain, and accompanying thrombocytopenia or platelet running down. So that's a clot issue. Now, some time ago, when these issues came up, the EMA, that is the EU's medical authorizing body, European Medical Regulation Body, was written to this issue, was addressed by European Union Parliament and the Scientific Committee. This is what they said: greater independence is needed to ensure the reliability of EMA's advice. EMA is the European Medical Authority that gives authority for medicines. So this particular medicine was given temporal emergency authorization, just like for Pfizer and for Moderna and for AstraZeneca vaccines. It is emergency regulation, emergency provision only. EMA relies on scientific experts to evaluate the safety and efficacy of medicines that could enter the European market. However, findings of inconsistencies and omissions in experts' interest declarations have motivated the European Parliament to call for an overhaul of the system that is now primarily based on trust rather than on verification. So the issue was that scientific experts who advise the EMA, if they have economic financial interest in the vaccine or any other drug, that they are asked to opine on, whose opinion is asked, they could be affected by the pecuniary consideration. That is why they are asked to declare conflict of interest. But the scientists and the European Parliament thought that that system is now breaking down. We echo the Parliament's call on the EMA to check systematically and at random declarations of interest and to verify their content in order to avoid conflicts of interest that could harm public health. So, this is a factual statement. So, this is how we look at this. We will get on with this topic without animus because this is science. And then we find Dr. Geet, a Belgian professor of immunology. He also brought forward the topic that the NK cells, that is the natural killer cell system of our immune system, will begin to be affected by when the virus, the mRNA produces spike proteins and antibodies. What happens is the natural killer system of cells, that is the first line of defense in innate natural immunity. First line of defense is from natural killer cells. They go down and the body loses their first line of defense against viruses. So that has been brought forward also by Dr. Geet and other immunologists about the process. Then, of course, always the issue was there that the former coronavirus vaccinations had ADE, antibody-dependent enhancement. So the apes and the chimpanzees used in those en masse, en bloc died. So that is why they are asking for animal experiments before vaccines are tested on humans. And then these are the issues, academic, scientific issues surrounding the vaccine issue. So we need to take cognizance of science, whether we like the politics or not. This is not anti-vax talk. This is scientific talk. This is about the development of the other side scientists who have also published themselves in Great Barrington Declaration. Then you need to read Professor Scott Atlas, Stanford University professor of public health and policy. He has published, he's available on Stanford Review. Scott Atlas, please read his recent talk on the subject, which is also very illuminating. So these are the issues that have been there at present. So whether there would be virus interference and the issue of autoimmunity developing, because many of our body cells with the mRNA vaccine will develop, our host cells will produce the spike protein, and there will be antibodies against the spike protein by our own body. So there could be autoantibody reactions against our own cells in time to come. That is also being discussed. Furthermore, besides the antibody reactions, it is also important to look at the viral immune escape. That is, when antibodies are being formed, the virus may escape the natural killer system of our innate immunity. So what's happening is with B cell dependent antibody responses, the body shifts from innate immunity dependent on cellular immunity, which is the best for viruses. The body shifts with this kind of vaccines into B cell dependent antibody responses that produce these issues that have been discussed widely in the scientific media. Now, I want to get on to this topic from a more general basis, the wisdom that works and the wisdom that does not work. What has been happening in the scientific scene for some length of time, this is what I'm trying to get at. The ex-gens are now the 70-year-olds, 65-year-olds. They pioneered science and business and other things, and they were good at their science, and they pioneered many fields, economics, science, and so on. And now the 45-year-olds were the zillennials. They were the bridge generation that saved the world, because these pioneers were generals and they had little time for anything else other than pioneering. They were great at pioneering. They were not very patient. So that's what happened. And but they handed over a world quite a bit in the design of how God made the world. So they handed over a well-designed world, and then the 45-year-olds took over, and they were zillennials. They managed to work with the fathers, and now the zillennials are passing half time, and they are coming close to 50. And then some zillennials have got into many important academic positions. So if you want to influence the drug policy of any nation, all you have to do is keep in touch with the regulation authorities. This has happened time and again, how drugs that were not fit for, that caused problems later, like celecoxib, how they got through the regulation authority, and then later it was discovered. And some companies had to pay back in the billions for pharmacological fraud. So my last substantive post was as head of pharmacology in a state medical faculty. That's why many of my talks have pharmacological information. Now recently, just yesterday, George Washington University published on the efficacy of low-dose aspirin in preventing hospital admissions, in preventing hospital deaths, in preventing intubation and necessity for ventilation. So low-dose aspirin really halves all those hospital admissions, death rates, need for ventilation, low-dose aspirin. So in India and in Sri Lanka also very widely, we have used early home therapy as recommended by some reputed scientists. We have used early home therapy. And then I have already touched on this. Ivermectin, besides hydroxychloroquine, has proved to be effective in chemoprophylaxis, that is prevention by giving the drug, and that is the ivermectin has been widely tried in Australia and has found to be effective. So I return to the topic, the X generation pioneered, and then the bridge generation, the zillennials, XILL, who are now 45. They worked with the fathers, and now they have to work with the Facebook generation or the Y-gens. Y-gens are also now coming to 40. They filled all possibilities in the world with new avenues being fully exploited. New avenues were fashion, cosmetics, IT, confectionaries. All this was fully the entertainment industry, music, decor, HR, and that was the world which was more like the old right brain system that was fully exploited. So that was, that was a social phenomenon. So from 1975 to till 2000, those 25 years, the world expanded a lot in some of the non-essentials. So when I say this with responsibility. In 1975, one of the best antibiotics available was amoxicillin, and now for any upper respiratory tract infection, even now the best antibiotic is amoxicillin. The GMC of UK have done different research and surveys and keep saying so. Best antibiotic for upper respiratory tract infection is still amoxicillin, which was discovered in before 1975. So the point I'm making is, after the Second World War, world had a reset, and every nation could have done very well. Because in the Second World War, many nations got devastated with the nuclear bomb in one nation, but then the war effect. But from 1975, what the world got onto was increasing economic disparity, and the rich became very rich. And by 2000, what happened was 90% of world's GDP was in the hands of 10% of people. And in the last 20 years, this became even worse. More and more wealth distribution planning, the GDPs of nations got into the hands of about 450 global brands. So in the last year, the COVID year, 10 people got richer by 3.5 trillion US dollars. Never in the history of mankind does such a concentration of wealth in the hands of such a few has happened. So that is abnormal. So the world is in a COVID reset, and how we will get on with the world after that is yet to be seen. So this is about the zillennials to the Y gen change. Then, of course, when we go down to the Z gen, sometimes called the I gen, so the Y gens mostly received information from the screen, but they reciprocated personally and normally. But when it came to the 25-year-olds now, the Z gen, they receive all information online, and their communications are also online or through the screen. So that's why they are called iGen. So we have to see what the iGens feel is they have to create their own world in their own image and according to their screen predilections. So I told you that the 35-year-old generation, the Facebook generation, they plugged into all the available resources in right brain activities and turned them into business. Social media, then entertainment. They made them into great business. So they really plugged in the world. Only that so much of the GDP went in that direction. Now the 25-year-olds feel they have to be their master of they have to be the master of their own world. And that is how the 25-year-olds are going at. So we need a generational connect. And this is how an old book of wisdom is addressing this issue. Old book of wisdom. Wisdom shouts in the streets. That's where people are walking around. She lifts her voice in the square where there's public enterprise, public interaction. And at the head of the noisy street, she cries out. At the entrance of gates in the city, she utters a saying. So gates in the city are the places of business. How long, so there are four kinds of people here. How long, O naive ones, they're ignorant, being simple-minded. Scoffers delight themselves in scoffing. So even in the scientific debate, Professor Scott Atlas and Professor J. Bhattacharya, Stanford University profs, bring this out, how any dissenting scientific view met scoffing, animus, hostility, they completely went off the rails of scientific norm or decency. They just got into a fisticuff, even on science, which needs to be debated rationally with reason. They went off reason, and anyone bringing a different view were attacked like criminals. So they criminalized the other view of science. This has come up again and again. So when Professor Harvey Risch, a Google scholar and done excellent work on the epidemiology professor of Harvard, done excellent epidemiology research on cancer. When he came out with epidemiological proof that hydroxychloroquine works as in early home treatment, he was lambasted. But thankfully, his faculty stood up for him, and they said our faculty endorsed academic freedom, and he proved the point. So this is about this is about what happens to wisdom. There are naive ones, simple-minded, who do not go deep. There's a scientific reason for this. What the screen has done is the pixel screen has shortened the attention span, made it shallow, and the concentration of application has also suffered. So three things: attention span. So this is my expert area. This is my research area. You can find me on YouTube, my own blog, PubMed. I have published on different topics like low-dose aspirin and Parkinson drugs, migraine, irritable bowel syndrome. So that's a bit of my academic history. So when I say these things, I'm not saying it with naive, but I'm saying it with academic understanding. So there has been such a lot of animus going on because of the scoffing at scientific knowledge. Then we have this describes a status called fools hate knowledge, but here it is not about the IQ that is referring to. This particular word is about those who have a heart of unwisdom. It's a heart that has derided, and a heart that has denied, and a heart that has, what shall I say, gone rotten. And so if you have a astute brain and a heart that goes rotten, so it is Francis Bacon who said, heart has reason about which brain knows nothing. Now, these are the foundational stones and roots of modern science. Francis Bacon, who said, heart has reason about which the brain knows nothing. So, if the brain science and the heart reason do not get together, we will have monsters and we will have all kinds of scientific phenomena, scientific processes that can destroy humankind. Now, to add to that, we have the Global Health Organization dodging the report about the origin of the virus. But it is beyond doubt that the virus is engineered at a furin point. That is why an old coronavirus has been taken, and at a furin point, the nucleotide sequence of HIV has been added. That is why the spike protein of COV2 attaches so firmly into the H2 receptor. The spike protein's invasivity has been increased, and this was the gain on function virus research that was funded by Dr. Fauci in US during the time of President Obama. But when John Hopkins and Harvard universities protested that this science is dangerous, they shifted it to Wuhan University with Wuhan Labs with a donation of $7 million. So till the end of till the beginning of 2020, there were scientists paid by CDC involved in this kind of virus research. That's a fact. Now, the WHO report said in September 2020, when they did an investigation, they found that this CoV2 virus has been in circulation. 19 variants of it have been in circulation in Wuhan from 2019 December. That is factual and that is recorded. So when this mutant strains, now today, today Massachusetts University has published a report that a variant escapes neutralizing antibodies of the present vaccines. I'll repeat this. A variant escapes completely the neutralizing antibodies of this present vaccine because the spike protein configuration, if it changes in a mutant, the present mRNA produces a certain spike protein, and that spike protein produces certain antibodies. They will not be effective for that variant. So this is why the issue of how effective vaccines will be is a problem. It's a scientific debate. There's nothing about anti-vaccine controversy. These are all about right science, how you think through a process. So that is about variation. Then finally, I want to get on to this topic, that flattery, what flattery does. So if scientists are not listening to criticism, they are flattering their own processes, which is quite anti-science. I have to call it toxic symbiosis of flattery. This can happen in science, politics, religion, any field, if we don't have faithful friends who tell us where we are going wrong. Think about it. So the one issue I want to establish is the reason of the heart and science of the brain. There's no contradiction between the two. They must work together. So a person begins to receive flattery because of the good work he does. So you know the ancient axiom: flattery is the food of fools. I am adding to that a few things. It's a slippery slope. So people flatter you for what you do. Two, flattery removes your true reward motive to achieve and receive. So initially you receive because you achieve. But as flattery comes in, you begin to find even sloppy works of the flattery. Even without work, you desire flattery and you flatter others yourself. So they are flattering you for what they gain from you. Uh, and later on, they know the basis of their flattery is untrue. Initially, it was true. So your temporal lobe plays up to the fantasia for the possibilities. You are no more thinking from your prefrontal cortex. You're fantasized in your temporal lobe. This happens to kids who are too much on the screen. The pictorial, the sound, the kinesthesia, the three posterior tracts of the brain, the three posterior tracts of the brain, according to the Professor Hubbard model, the three posterior tracts of the brain, kinesthesia, acoustics, and visual are getting overwired, and the temporal lobe is excited for imagination and fantasy, and your prefrontal cortex stop initiation, navigation, in conclusion, and successful reward, which is the top-down regulation. This is why a child who's on the screen, now it is, yesterday also there's published report, 2 hours, more than 2 hours on the screen will ruin the child's memory, recall, and the entire learning process. And I have added to that, at any time, more than 25 minutes on the digital screen with very fast activity, lot of pixel consuming activity, the child will not be studying. Though he looks at the book, he's not absorbing. So I'm on the topic of flattery. Flattery pumps up your temporal lobe with all kinds of imagination, pictorial imagination, sound, and so on. Your prefrontal cortex goes down. That is why those who begin to eat the flattery they get, their performance goes down. But they think they are doing very well. Just like those who are on alcohol. Yes. Attacking others may parallel your gloating. As your appetite changes, bulimia sets in. Other immoralities can come because you lose your sense of check back, because you're on a fast food, a drug called flattery. You assess yourself only by flattery of false friends, and you become a flatterer. You become Mr. Alice in Wonderland. You hate truth from your true friends. Your bloated ego makes you dizzy. And other new friends have now got on the bandwagon who are really parasites. The icing on the cake has become all icing and no cake. You live in a fool's paradise built on snowflakes. Then people begin to see that you are not useful anymore. And those false friends leave you. I have taken another parable on this, toxic symbiosis of flattery. Why I'm saying this is people are so much on the screen and the social media, they want, WAUNT, want on themselves a platform and an image that's not realistic. And this has become, I regularly see parents coming with kids who can't get on to studies, who can't get on to anything else. They are so screen revved up. They live from amygdala bottom-up regulation. That is, whatever they see, they get excited about. They don't stop. They don't conclude something for reward. The imagination is their reward revved up. There's no sense of check back. I did this, I achieved this. The reward motive is completely gone. So, flatterers expect more benefit from the benefactor. Senior finds even with less work, flattery continues. Juniors find flattery makes senior more mellifluous. He gives more honey, they return more saccharine. Fermentation ensues with a measure of intoxicant fumes in the air. You know, yeah, you're getting intoxicated. Flattery, like alcohol, dumps critical faculties. Deadly trap for sugar diabetes as senses numb. A kind of coma sets in. Discerning sight is affected as it is affected with diabetes. The senses get benumbed, insensitivity all around. Some who are yet not completely benumbed by the sugary syrup, they may try to exit this intoxicating gas chamber. But then for some, it's too late. So that's a little bit of a graphic description about flattery. So this is so much people live by the opinion of others, and people live to make opinion and not to work. This is a real problem. So they make believe, make do. The real this has affected research so much. I am very passionate about this because I topped every batch in my medical faculty, and I was into quite a bit of research in different directions. And my last research was on the digital screen, its effect on career, curriculum. I have often published on it. These are two last books I have written. Let's Be Screen Mart. This is available from Vijitayapa, Saraswati Bookshop, and Lake House Bookshop. We can post it, yes. It'll cost about 300 rupees to post. This is a thicker book. We are not hoping to post it. This is on winning the digital war for millennials and our soul. Again, this is available from Saraswati Bookshop, Vijitayapa, and also our Brookside Bookshop. These books, the forwards have been written by the warden of St. Thomas's College, my alma mater, and also the former dean and professor emeritus, Colombo Medical Faculty, Professor Rohan Jayasekaran. You can have a look at the books. Buying one would be good for the digital screen and how to instruct young fellows. So here I want to get on to why you need a good shepherd. You need a voice other than your own voice. Then you need a voice that is not dependent on human accolades, because they will give you what you like to hear. But in the heart of man, I'm suggesting there is a compass, there is a North Star, there is a Lodestar, there is a way that we can know the right things about life, including a marriage partner for life. I often counsel young fellows on this because the digital screen makes them reckless. Dopamine is on the high. Dopamine turns to addictive DA2 receptor. Dopamine must go up and come down. Allow serotonin to come up and do a mop-up operations, the self-check, and look back and say this was good, this was not good, this needs to improve. All that has to happen. And that's the work of serotonin, the neurochemical transmitter. When these things don't happen, dopamine is on the high for gambling. Life is a gamble. So you from decide and do, you get on to dare and do. How must we go? Prefrontal cortex, decide and do. What are you getting into? Amygdala, hypothalamus, dare and do. Try and see, feel and do. So you're continually on fright, flight, fight mode. You can see it so much on the social media and the way kids behave when they are digitized. Fright, flight, fight. So they are on adrenaline, cortisol, and in some people, in some young kids, cortisol causes obesity. There are medical consequences. I have published on this, medical effects of too much of the digital screen. There are real medical effects: children's migraine, children's abdominal migraine, then children obesity, steatosis, fatty liver, because of wrong food habits that have been engendered by too much digital stimulation. So I have to tell you this: at meal times, please no screen. After 6 p.m., minimize screen. And under the age of 3, no screen at all. American Pediatric Academy advises, because there are serious consequences of young fellows getting on too much on the screen. So I was on the subject why a good shepherd has to plumb the line in us, especially about sexual thrills. I advise, counsel young fellows, saying there's a shape in your inside that is a God-given design shape, the life partner for life. Till that arrives, don't go on to experimentations. That's a hurt that you do to yourself. It's almost an irrecoverable hurt. Why does this happen? Because you're on the dopamine mode of try any thrill that comes your way. So when the bus is coming, if you're crossing the road, you don't stop. You want to cross and see. So in fact, when young fellows take this kind of stimulants for rugger, they have more injuries. In fact, children who are digitized lose their sense of risk. So a little fellow who knows I can't climb down the stairway, he attempts to climb down stairways because his risk sense is dumbed, where dopamine says, do, you can do. And when dopamine becomes DA1 to DA2, it's addictive mode, you're driven to do. You're never in the present. Your past is pushing you, and your futuristic fantasia is pulling you forward. You're not really not here. So sci-fi monsters, aliens, spook, ghosts, all that is thrown into the cauldron pot. So what do we do in our empathic learning center? I see parents every Friday evening. It's free. If you want any more clips or written stuff on this, please send a WhatsApp to plus 94 77 49 59 214. Plus 94 77 49 59 214. I can send you some material, especially the open letter. European scientists have written to the EMA about their caution about COVID clots. It's a very well written letter, a lot of scientific references, but the main body is explained in a way even a layman can understand. So we need a different plumb line. Otherwise, we'll fall for flattery, flattering ourselves. That plumb line will tell us our beginning, which is the ontology, the how we do it, that's the cosmology, and where we are going, that's the teleology, the best end for our life. So when I was an atheist and did not see any need for God, the change came into me simply because I found when my brain got brilliant, my heart was shrinking. I became impossible, only interested in knowledge, 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 more knowledge, and more knowledge. So I easily get entangled in arguments just to prove the superiority of my brain. So my brain didn't suffer, but my brain became better when I learned the reason of the heart. You remember Francis Bacon? He said, heart has reasons the brain knows nothing about. This is what I'm strongly recommending in the last part of my message, that there is a good shepherd who can give heart reasons for family, for marriage, what sexuality is, what the ultimate purpose of all this is, how the purpose can be the compass in your life. And I come to the final bit of my thing. Life is about mistake management. Life is about a second chance. So if we put our mistakes under the carpet, they will come up. Mistakes can be erased off. This is the story of the cross. It was a great instrument that took away the error, took away the guilt, and gave us a clean sheet. If we don't have this mechanism, we will indict others. We will go heavy on justice, justice, justice for others. But when we are at the wrong end of the law, when we are at the wrong end of the stick, we will say, oh, mercy for me. So in fact, cross is about mercy triumphing over justice. I did not get my just desserts. Two, what goes wrong can be corrected. So when you're speaking to your kid, please speak on correction. Speak on improvement. Don't harp on the last wrong thing he did. Then you reinforce the last wrong thing. So we are into redemptive wisdom. not into retribution. Yeah, retribution means give the fellow what he deserves. But there is someone who does not give us what we deserve, but he gives us the best he has for our life. That is the Good Shepherd. Thank you for listening. Uh, I did a little bit more detail on the COVID clots. It has become a global issue, and the way the regulating authorities quickly put it away without addressing the scientific issues is the problem. Then you wonder, why are they doing this? Why did they rush it? And why are they now not facing up to the scientific debate and trying to criminalize who have great expertise and who have a deep scientific true reason to question what is happening. This is a time like that. Besides that, I told you that 10 people have become amassed 3.5 trillion US dollars in 10 days. It's not only that, all the nation's resources are being manhandled by a few global elite, the global dinosaurs, I call them. So the nations are in an economic strangulation facilitated by lockdown and shutdown. So that's the economic effect. So how each nation can once again be free is a hard battle. I have done my clip number 158 saying, bless our nation, Sri Lanka. Blessed beauty I have called Sri Lanka. Every reason we need to bless our nation. This clip number 159 is please forgive our mouths. The way we have so bad-mouthed our nations, maybe everywhere. So thank you for listening. Please go have a look at those clips. If you want any clips sent, I have an app. I can send it to you free of charge. Please send me a WhatsApp message to +94 77 49 59 214. Thank you for listening.